Hey there, students. This is Mr. Carlson. I'm on my Schoology page here. Just a couple things to point out for you over the next couple weeks. Number one, if you need to figure out what we're doing any day, if you just click on your calendar here, I already tabled out for the whole entire month of February. Every day has been chosen for you there. In addition to that, there's also all of your quick writes and whatnot. And then your quick writes right down here for your quick writes and grammar material. I still expect you to do your quick writes beginning on February 11th and going all the way through the end of the trimester. And I'll update this as we go along. But an example is like for tomorrow, you're going to learn about conjunctions here. And then in addition to that, you're also going to, it's also, you have conjunctions here. And then you also have, your work here, you're going to identify the noun, the verb, the pronoun, the adjective, the adverb, or the conjunction. And then on the next slide, I put in all the answers for you. So, and then the next day is like a quick write. Then you go back to grammar, and again, the answer will be put in there for you. And so it'll just be really helpful for you to go along and do these things as you go through this trimester, especially when I'm not here. In addition to that, I'm going to get back to my class here. We are in Romeo and Juliet now, and you will see in here you have all these documents for Romeo and Juliet materials, and all of these are on the desk over by the royal poster with all of your lions there. But it has all these documents, and every act has a study guide that goes along with it. So I'm sure you guys can help the substitute out and get those passed out when need be. But so that's a big thing there. And then another thing is if you click on this link to Romeo and Juliet, you will see a link to an audio and a link to the Spark Notes. And to be quite honest with you, the Spark Notes is really helpful. It'll help you process what's going on. If you have any questions, it changes it. So it just does a really great job, about having the original text and comparing it to modern text. So we can appreciate the amazing writing of Shakespeare's beautiful sonnets and the way that he writes in his couplets. But we also, on the right hand side, have the opportunity to kind of understand if we don't know it. Hey, if you want to buy a new pair of Skechers here, or a hooded sweatshirt or whatnot, look at that light heather gray, man, it just looks amazing. So you always have those things to do as well. But I think these are all really helpful for you. But if we go back to the first part, I want to talk about a PowerPoint that's on here, and this PowerPoint is about what takes place to begin. Just a little bit about Shakespeare. And a lot of this stuff we talked about on Friday when we watched the video Shakespeare in the Classroom. But I'm just going to quickly go through and kind of remind you of all the things that were on there. So, some of this information will be on your final, and it's important to understand what's going on. And the first thing we'll talk about with Shakespeare is just the beginning of his life. And for Shakespeare, there isn't a lot known about him when he was young. In the video we watched on Friday, there's only 5 main facts that we know. And we know when he was born on April 26th of 1564. We know that he is the son of John Shakespeare and that his dad was a glove maker. His mom was Mary Arden. We know he died at the age of 52, and that was in 1616. This is believed to be the house where Shakespeare grew up in. He did not have a lot of education. It's kind of crazy. You think about Albert Einstein, you think about William Shakespeare, people with limited education that do amazing things. And I think that's always something to talk about is how valuing people on what class they're from or how much money they make or whatever it is kind of pointless because greatness comes from anybody and. That can be said for William Shakespeare. But he went to Stratford Grammar School, and that's it. He was done in elementary school there. At the age of 18, he was married to Anne Hathaway. She was 8 years older than him, kind of an oddity to marry a woman that is older than you, especially in the 1500s. But what it is, right? He had 3 children. We wrote about these in our notes on Friday from Shakespeare in the Classroom. And we know that very limited stuff is talked about him. The first time that we see his name in print is in 1592, and according to Shakespeare in the Classroom, we know that his name was put into print because someone was critiquing him in a negative way. Well, one interesting thing about Shakespeare is that he was not only an actor, but he was also a playwright. And it's almost like an oxymoron there. Put those two together, it just doesn't make sense. Actors are stupid, they're dirty. Playwrights are educated and they're respectable. And many playwrights were offended when he started writing plays because they felt that he wasn't of the elite status to do that. He created 38 plays, 154 sonnets. He has two epic poems. His first was published in 1623. And if you think about that, the first work of Shakespeare here that was published was 1623 by two of his friends. It's after his time, after he died, and it's the first time his work was published. The plays were performed in many places, in courtyards and houses and open land. We talked about this on Friday about limited sets and how you always had a prologue where someone would kind of speak about what was taking place ahead of time so that you could know what was going to take place. It required a lot of imagination. And in the 1500s, this was the entertainment was going to the theaters. The first theater was simply called the theater. Some of the other common ones were the Rose, the Curtain, the Hope, and the Swan. And one of the common denominators that we read about or that we watched on Friday was about Shakespeare in the Classroom, about how everybody could attend the play. You had people who were rich; they were able to sit in the covered balconies, and you also had those people that were not of the upper class that still had the opportunity to go there. All they had to do was pay a penny to get in. Obviously, we know that these places are pretty unsanitary. The plague was brought about, Black Death. They were shut down many times. People of London, of places where theaters were, did not like them because they believed that they brought moral diseases like prostitution and pickpocketing and just corruptness because there's more evil when there's more people around. And the people who couldn't afford a seat, they only had to pay a penny, and they were called the groundlings, and they just sat out in the open right down on the floor. Uh, the most well-known theater of that time was the Globe. It's still around today. It was rebuilt in the 1990s. We'll get there in a second. But cool thing about this, I thought Shakespeare in the Classroom did a really good job on Friday talking about how there's an open-air theater, 3 levels high. A stage was rectangular, about 43 by 28 feet wide. It had trapdoors and simple rigging, but the thought of having trapdoors is a pretty special effect there in the 1590s and early 1600s. It's just some pictures of what it would kind of look like. Again, I think the video that we watched on Friday does a better job than this. But in 1989, the Globe Foundation was rediscovered, and they started creating a new construction of the Globe Theater, and this is what it looks like today. Pretty amazing thing. I've never been to London. It's on my bucket list to go and see Romeo and Juliet at the Globe Theater, but it has not happened yet. But maybe one of these years I'll be able to go there. And just a picture from the outside of what it looks like. And then a couple other things, we know that Queen Elizabeth is the queen at this time, and she loved plays, and she really gave the these playwrights and actors a great opportunity. That the city of London was not a big fan of the plays, but since she loved them so much, she was the big initiator to keep them going on. We know that women were considered to be far inferior to men in the 1590s and early 1600s. We know that they weren't allowed to act. There's definitely set marriages for them where daughters don't have a choice in who they get to pick. Their parents do it for them. The first play that of the time that that had comedy and tragedy was Romeo and Juliet. This was something that wasn't really anticipated. There was comedies, there was tragedies, but to put them together was something that was pretty uncommon, and it definitely brought on a lot of critiques for Shakespeare. But obviously, it's pretty amazing as it's over 400 years later, and we're still talking about it. And so that puts us at the end of this little PowerPoint here. So a couple of other things we'll talk about now is um, if you go back to our stuff here and you go back to our materials and our materials here, sorry, you're gonna have to bear with me at times, guys. In our materials, you have the Spark Notes that I had pointed out earlier, and so you have the audio that you can use in addition to the Spark Notes, and I think it'll really help you as you go along. And so it starts with a prologue. All right, the prologue is done by a chorus, and it kind of sets us up for what's going to transpire in the story. And so it begins. Are you guys ready?